Madam President, I rise today to speak on behalf of S-1074, the Thomasina Jordan Indian Tribes Federal Recognition Act of 2013. This is a bill granting federal recognition to 6 Indian tribes. These 6 Indian tribes, the Chickahominy Eastern Division, Upper Mattaponi, Rappahannock, Monacan, and Nansemond, are among the best-known tribes in American history, but they have never received federal recognition. 566 federal tribes have received federal recognition, the vast majority by congressional action, but these tribes have not been recognized. Madam President, the story of these tribes and why they've never been recognized is why I take the floor. It's an amazing story, but it is also a deeply tragic story. But the tragedy can be redeemed if Congress acts to correct a gross historical injustice that has deprived these tribes of their rightful place. This is about a full accounting of our past, but it's also about a fair and truthful recognition of living people who have maintained their own tribal identity and customs and traditions against unbelievable odds for hundreds of years. The treaty, Madam President, the Treaty of the Middle Plantation was signed 100 years before the Declaration of Independence. And that peace that was made between the Indians and the settlers paved the way for the modern Virginia and modern English-speaking America. It's been continuous since 1677, the peace of these tribes. The relations between Virginians and the tribes have been strong. They've endured significant adversity. Their numbers of population have dwindled from 25,000 down to about 3,000 or 4,000 enrolled tribal members today. They converted to the religion of the English settlers, Christianity. They fought as American patriots in every war this country has been in, from the Revolutionary War to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They faced discrimination as Indians, often kept out of schools in Virginia because of the color of their skin, because they weren't deemed to be Caucasian by state leaders at the time. But the relationship is a peaceful one, and these tribes still exist. The Smithsonian curators recognize what Congress has failed to do. Go to the second floor. There's a permanent exhibit on the second floor of the museum, and the title of the exhibit is Return to a Native Place, Algonquian Peoples of Chesapeake. And that permanent exhibit in the museum with the plastic dioramas highlights the Powhatan tribes that are the subject of this bill. Here's how the museum describes the permanent exhibit dedicated to these tribes. Through photos, maps, ceremonial, and everyday objects, this display provides an overview of the history of the native peoples of the Chesapeake region from the 1600s to the present day. So we do recognize these tribes in a museum, and we acknowledge that they're not just a part of history, but in the words of the museum display description, but that the people continue to maintain their tribal identity to the present day. But while we recognize the tribes in a museum 3 blocks from the Capitol, we do not yet recognize these tribes in law. Madam President, to conclude, it is long past time that these tribes receive the tribal recognition that hundreds of other tribes have received. It is long past time that these tribes be accorded the same respect in the America for whom they fought since the Revolutionary War that they receive in England when they go visit. And it is long past time that the bones of these Powhatan ancestors be returned to Virginia so they can be buried by their families in the only land that they ever knew as home.